Shalom. Shalom. Brothers here in New Jersey, coming back. Lord allowed us to, Yahweh Bashman Shah allowed us to do a lesson. We'll start by giving all the praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh,
Yahweh, Bashem,
Bahashem, Yahweh
Yahweh
Shai,
Shai,
Bahashem, Chakudash. All right. What we said was all the praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, who is the Heavenly Father, in the name of His Son, Yahweh Shai, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. And brothers, through the spirit, we doing a a lesson of pretty much, we doing a lesson going into the tribe of Issachar, man. Spirit hopped on us, to go through the tribes, you know. So right now we, once again dealing with the tribe of Issachar. And I had a brother Kahan here with me, you know. So Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. So I'm gonna share the screen. Anything you want to add, bro?
No, you got it.
So I'm gonna share the
Oh,
screen.
Salakia, for those who don't know, Issachar represents the so-called Mexicans today.
That's right.
Issachar translates to Yashashkar, meaning Yahi Shashkar is higher. You got it
Right.
up.
Khan. Um, Khan, you break it down and everything. But it's Genesis chapter 49, verses 1 and 2. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father.
Right now, the last days. Let me grab a precept. Um,
Yeah, let me know if you want to share your screen and anything.
Con. This is yeah,
You gonna share it?
yeah. I'm gonna share my screen.
Yeah.
So you gotta request me, or I just share it.
You could share it and I'm gonna put it on the screen.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Salakia, Akin. My shit's kind of slow as well. All right. Hebrews 1:1. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in times past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the world. So I bring this out to prove that the last days was essentially, it started when Yahweh Shai went back to the spiritual realm. All right, because you might have some people say, well, y'all talking about the 1500s. That's not the last days, but that all encompasses the last days.
Right.
You got it up.
Yeah. So when Yahweh Shai, he was so when Yahweh Shai was, on the scene, okay, um, that's when the last day started, like the brother said. So from that, and he was here way before the 1500s, man. All right. So these prophecies, okay, that we read in here in Genesis 49, all right, this was regarding, you know, uh, uh um, this was this came to pass after Yahweh Shah left. Okay, the last day started when he was here, you know, but ever since then it's been the last days, and currently we're in the last days. Okay, but this history, all right, don't think that it's talking about, don't think that it's this history, it's still within the last days. So this is Genesis 49 and 14. Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant under tribute. So Issachar, right? Um, Issachar Salaki. Let me just see. So I was gonna give me the okay. Issachar right here, right? Strong's H 3485 and Yah Shashakar. Yah meaning he, and let me see. So there's recompense, but Shashakar, Shakar. Let me see if it says here. Yeah, see Shakar. All right, it says higher wages, wages, reward, pay. So Issachar means he is hired. All right. Once again, if I gotta go, you could just talk.
Con.
You know, and when you look at the so-called Mexicans, you know, they are. I'm gonna share a screen if I gotta, pause for a minute. But the so-called Mexicans, they hired and everything. They take the jobs. They hard workers and everything. So this Issachar is a strong ass. Okay. Anything you want to add to? I get this or not?
No, you got it up.
Con ass here. Strong's H 2543, comma war. Says ass a male ass to a donkey. So like likened to a donkey, right? You know, which is a hard working animal to burden. That's what it's referring to. It's meaning when it says Issachar is a strong ass, meaning that they hard workers. Okay. It says couching down between two burdens. Now look of map of uh, the Americas, right? These two burdens, okay, is sorry, the two burdens really, all right. If I just get a better picture, oh, damn, okay. Two burdens is really North America and Central America. You see, and it's like couching down. Mexico is right in between. All right. So, and not saying that so-called Mexicans anywhere else is they're not the tribe of Issachar. All right, but they but they primarily dwell. All right, I'm not saying that if they're not scattered anywhere else, they're not Issachar because they are scattered. People scatter all over, but they primarily dwell as prophecy that they would dwell in the land of Mexico. Okay, and so like let me get that word for couching down. All right, Rabataza says to stretch oneself out, lie down, lie stretched out, to lie down, to cause to lie down, to make the rest sit. So that's where they abide, really. That's really where they abide. Yeah, you want to bring out that thing of remember you were telling me that they were working.
Oh, damn. Let me see if I can find it again.
Come on. So unlike these scoffers and scorners, they don't understand. This is all this. you know, it's prophecy that these things will come to pass. And they want to scoff against the 12 tribes chart and the breakdowns and everything. You know, they don't understand this prophecy. This is actually prophecy that this would happen. You see, you know, and then you look around. Each of these tribes have their own spirit. You know, like for example, the tribe of Issachar, they hard workers, man. You know, and like, not saying Judah ain't hard workers, but
Hmm.
for the most part, Judah don't have that same hard working spirit as Issachar does. You know, not negating that they hard workers, but for the most part, so called Negroes, man. You know, but there's another cut when people try to say the tribe of Reuben, aren't are a bunch of are pretty much multiple Native American tribes gathered together. All right, but see those people have this have Reubenite spirits. You see, you still looking for it?
Yeah.
Come on.
Shit, I don't know why I ain't see that.
Was it on Wikipedia?
No, I was in his book I was reading. It was in his book I was telling you about.
Oh, Lost Tribes of the Promised Land.
No, it's called Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by
Oh,
Peter
okay.
Tompkins. Yeah.
Con. But Issachar, right? Verse 15. And it says, and he saw that rest was good. All right. It says in the land that it was pleasant. Now, let me just 1 second here.
Oh, I got you. I got it right here. The water Yahabashimi I was shy.
Come on, let me share your screen real quick. So, all right, there you go.
So I wonder how do I make my like my okay,
Just
I
zoom
could
in.
yeah, like if I want to just
That's good. Try. Can you switch to another tab?
let me see. Cause I got it in my book. I was gonna read it out of my book here.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
So it
Let's
says I don't know if brothers can see that. Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramid by Peter Tompkins.
Salakia. Hold up. Hold up 1 sec. Salakia. Yeah, do it again.
Yeah.
Con. Yep.
I went to that brother Kadarsh Pot.
Con. So on.
It says when Cortez returned with enough Spaniards and native allies to defeat the Mexica, he ordered the great and beautiful city of Tenochtitlan destroyed. Palaces, columns, and gods were buried in the mud. To avoid the stench of the dead, the Spaniards set up camp in the nearby village of Cayocan. Groups of captive Indians razed every last building of the Aztec capital and filled in the canals so not stone was was standing. On the leveled ruins, Cortez found his own great capital, Mexico City, patterned on a feudal model already dying in Europe. Mexican slaves by the thousands, many of them highly skilled as sculptors, carpenters, masons, and gardeners, hauled stone and timber from the debris of, and that's another thing. I mean, Jake in itself and themselves are very skilled, but Issachar is very, well, shit. You can find pyramids in those lands, the land of Mexico, I believe, and was it Guatemala, if I'm not mistaken, or just in that region. So it says Mexican slaves by the thousands, many of them highly skilled as sculptors, carpenters, masons, and gardeners. Oh, gardeners, that's another thing. You see a lot of Issachar, um, doing the landscaping today.
Right.
Hauled stone and timber from the debris of Tenochtitlan. Iron chisels and iron hammers enabled them to cut the porous red stone of the valley into palatial European houses, over the doors of which the new hidalgos could place their carved escutcheons. I wonder what that is.
Come on. You know.
Escutcheons.
Hey, that's that scripture once again. Issachar is a strong ass, man. You know, Issachar is a strong ass. You see, and the so-called Mexicans, right? They are hard workers. Genesis 4:49 and 14. Issachar is a strong ass. They are hard workers. You see, and verse 15. And look, because that mentioned the Aztecs, right?
This, yeah, it does go into the Aztecs.
They were saying like they were the ones that was building that, right?
Um, yeah, it says groups of captive Indians razed every last building of the Aztec capital. Yep.
Come on, you know. You see, and once because the so-called Mexican people, they were they're the so-called Aztecs. We say so-called because really they're Hebrew Israelites of the tribe of Issachar, the nation of Israel, right? And that's the spirit because it's gonna go right into it. Go into some history, 49 Genesis 49:15. And the thing is, when you read in the first verse, and this goes for all the tribes, man. When it says that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days, Jacob, which is one of our forefathers, whose name was later changed to Israel, he told his sons, his 12 sons, also known as the 12 patriarchs, you know, the things that would happen to them, all right, to their descendants, all right, in the last days, which the last days started from the period from Yahushai, when he was walking the earth all the way up to now. Okay, so these so when we read these things, we can identify, all right, who they are, who it applies to. Okay, and you so-called Mexicans, you're of the tribe Issachar. You know, now verse 15. All right, and once again, you so-called Mexicans, you were also the Aztecs. Genesis 49 and 15, and he saw that rest was good in the land, that it was pleasant. Okay, talking about the land of Mexico. All right, you get you type in things about beauty of Mexico. Let me just see if it says anything here. All right, now it says here Mexico is known for its beautiful cenotes, natural pits or water-filled caves that are popular swimming spots for tourists. Cenotes have a particular significance for the Mayan people.
Oh, see, it's called a cenotes.
Cenotes.
Yeah,
Yeah, what that mean? Cenotes.
no.
Right. But it says cenotes have a particular significance for the Mayan people who used them as water sources. And guess what? The Mayans were the tribe of Zebulon, and they used to coexist, which we'll get in a minute. You see?
Oh, it says they are natural sinkholes or pits that are
Mm,
formed when limestone bedrock collapses, exposing groundwater.
dang.
Damn.
Cenote. Next, let me get a picture of it. Damn, yeah, that's beautiful.
Damn. Word. Shit.
That's you see the land that it was pleasant. He saw the land that it was. And this is natural, man. You know, and guess what? These are things that tourists go to Mexico to do. The so-called black women like traveling everywhere. Like to go to Mexico and do these different things. You see, it's just something people would like to do. But as the scripture says, and he saw the rest was good in the land that it was pleasant. You know, not only that. Let me see. Hey, is Cancun in Mexico?
Yeah, that's in Mexico.
You know, okay. This type of stuff don't would make you want to stay down there and make you want to come back. America don't have this, so this is just identifying it. You know, want to tribe Issachar, man, so-called Mexicans. Okay, what it says, and he saw that rest was good in the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. You know, meaning Issachar. You know, who are the so-called Mexicans, who are also the Aztecs. They became slaves to the Spaniards or the conquistadors. See, and
Yep.
Kyle, you had some?
Yeah, I was gonna finish this off because it goes exactly what you were saying. It says,
Oh, Salaki.
and
All
it's
right.
just one of many, right? It says surviving on drinking water. So I'll start up a little bit. It says, where was I? I'll read that again. Mexican slaves by the thousands, many of them highly skilled as sculptors, carpenters, masons, and gardeners, hauled stone and timber from the debris of the Tenoch- Tenochtitlan.
Mm-hmm.
Iron chisels and iron hammers enabled them to cut the porous red stone of the valley into palatial European houses. So you know who they was working for,
Right.
over the doors of which the new hidalgos could place their carved escutcheons, which the escutcheons is pretty much like their emblem, like a coat of arms. Where Indian palaces and pyramids had stood, churches and monasteries sprang up, complete with battlements, buttresses, and heavy grilled windows against the Indians who had built them. So, uh, you see, this wasn't our culture. You see, churches and monasteries, that's Esau.
Right.
Surviving on drinking water and a few tortillas, the Indians, at their own expense, supplied all the work and all the material. Brought up from childhood to a Spartan life, trained to endure pain, they worked long hours without showing fatigue, constantly subject to the unbelievable savagery by the Spaniards.
Man.
Individuals were torn from their families to work as slaves in gold and silver mines, branded on their faces each time they changed masters. The prettier women were raped and infected with the smallpox, smallpox, leprosy, and all manner of plagues. By 1545, the Tlaxcala alone, a quarter of a million Indians had died of the plague. Although 3 million, it says although 3 million were to die as disease spread to Tabasco and Yucatan.
Damn. Come on, man. It said they work long hours. You know, that's the so-called Mexican for you right there, man. You know what I mean? They are very hard workers, and it mentioned to Tenochtitlan, right? I had mentioned them as well, right?
Yeah. Yup.
That's the spirit, right? Because that's we're gonna pull that up next. Okay, and this also shows how they hard workers. Now I have here on Wikipedia, right? It was now there's now I had typed in Mexico. Okay, Mexico, right? Now I ain't gonna read all of this. All right, I ain't even gonna really read too much of it really, but it says human presence right here. All right, it says uh, human presence in pre-Columbian Mexico, and pre-Columbian is a term meaning before the Europeans got to this side of the world. Dates back to 8,000 BC. Is one of the world's six cradles of civilization. All right, we can get into that. Right, I'm get into that. Right. It says the Mesoamerican region hosted civilizations including Olmec, Maya, Zapotec, Tehuantepec, all right, etc. All right. So, because when you read through some of these things, you gotta, you know, spit the bones. You gotta eat the meat and spit the bones. It says the Aztecs came to dominate the area, but were conquered by the Spanish Empire, which established the colony of New Spain, centered in the former capital, Tenochtitlan, which is what? Now Mexico City. Now, this is what the brother was just referencing, right? Now, Tenochtitlan, I don't know how you say that for real. Okay. It says Tenochtitlan, also known as Mexico Tenochtitlan, was a large Mexican atolpedal. All right. It says at the atolpedal was a local ethnically based political entity, usually translated into English as city state, of pre-Columbian Nahuatl-speaking societies in the Americas. It says, and what is now the historic center of Mexico City. It says, jumping around, the city was built on an island in what was then Lake Texcoco in the Valley of Mexico. All right, this is Lake Texcoco right here. All right, the city was the capital of the expanding Aztec Empire. So Esau, right, you're talking about savages, and we were all just we needed civilization all the time. Man, people had empires. Okay, all right, and this Tenochtitlan, the brother reference, okay, it was like the capital of this empire, this Aztec empire. It says in the 15th century until it was captured by I believe these were the enemies. It's like if I
Jax.
could be wrong.
Jax Caltic. I think it's like Caltic.
Yeah, in the Spanish of 1521. See, now this is a picture of Tenochtitlan, right? Look at that, man. And that had work to be built. That was hard to be built, man. A city, you know, on the water, okay? But, you know, this goes to show, uh, you, Issachar definitely built that, being out there hard workers, you see? Now, jumping down, just see here. All right, I might come back to that later. Okay. Oh, something else I had clicked, right? Oh yeah. Let's see. Let me type it up here. I had typed it before. How was Tenochtitlan built? Or what was it built on? Right. It says the Aztec built their capital city, Tenochtitlan, on Lake Texcoco. So they built it on a lake. Built on two islands, the area was extended using chinampas, small artificial islands created above the waterline that were later consolidated. All right. Tenochtitlan eventually reached an area of more than 13 square kilometers, 5 square miles. See, so this took some work, man. You know, um, means of Tenacity land. Let me just see what else is here. Okay, it says today the ruins of Tenochtitlan are the historic center of the Mexican capital, the World Heritage Site of how do you say that? Chimilco contains what remains of the geography, water, boats, floating gardens of the Mexican capital. All right, and they have where you could walk through and see some of these things. Okay, but under the conquest, right? Check this out. All right, now actually before that, I'm gonna get Deuteronomy. Let's, brother, brother, you got something you want to add?
Wow. Okay. Hold up. Yeah. This is when the Spaniards first glimpsed the island capital of Tenochtitlan, glimmering like an exotic Venice at the end of a wide causeway with stunning palaces, temples, and pyramids, stuccoed pink and volcanic as ash rising from the cerulean waters of the lake. They thought they were dreaming. Though many had seen the splendors of Rome and Constantinople, they were amazed at a city of 300,000 inhabitants fed by freshwater aqueducts, laced with canals and carefully paved streets, adorned by arcaded squares twice as big as Salaman- Salamanca's,
Hmm.
served by a marketplace with 70,000 Indians daily brought and sold 1,000 different products, from
Damn.
filigree jewelry to mountains of polychrome feathers, including those from the rare quetzal bird. The Spaniards were enchanted by such luxuries as botanical and zoological gardens, by elegantly towered palaces higher than the Cathedral of Seville, surrounded by large and beautiful private houses with fragrant gardens, shaded by bright cotton awnings, where courtly nobles feasted on fruits and vegetables, sauces and soups, fish and meat, cakes and pies. Damn, so that goes right where you were saying. And was that Genesis 49
Hmm.
about the beautiful land? This is varied by such delicacies as maguey grubs with hot chili, winged ants with savory herbs, and rats and chocolate. Yeah, that's going off. Rats and chocolate. Fuck that, bro.
you know, hey, our people did some off stuff too. Don't they? We was on the western side of the world, living pure, man, all the time. You know,
That's the one you was
that's
showing right up.
Yup,
Well, like, right there.
yup, right there. Yup, that's it. Our people went off too. When they came over here, because initially, as it tells you in Second Esdras, we came over here to keep the laws. Our people had went off though. You know, but over here, right? Oh, slap before I get that. This is Deuteronomy chapter 33, and this is another scripture. That we use. Another chapter we can use to identify who the tribes are. See, it's not only Deuteronomy 28. These scoffers, man, don't understand the Bible. Deuteronomy 33 and 18. And of Zebulon, he said, right? The Zebulon are the people from people in Central America, from Guatemala to Panama. So the so-called Guatemalans, Belizeans, Hondurans, Nicaraguans, all right, um,
Salvadorians.
El Salvadorans, Costa Ricans, all right, and also the Mayans, all right. And of Zebulon, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulon, and not going out, and what in Issachar and thy tents, because Issachar were the so-called Aztecs, which are also the so-called Mexicans, and they used to coexist. You know, they used to coexist. Is why you look the history up and what we read. You'll see Aztecs here. But you see Mayans and Aztecs. Amongst each other. All right. I want to bring this out. Right. Oh, slap the next verse. Verse 19. They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness. Here's the point. For they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasures hidden in the sand. Okay. Let me just see if this got any meat to it real quick. Um, abundance. All right. It's just Shapai just says abundance. Let me go back. Salakia. And the treasures, Shapun. All right. Shapun. Strong's H8226. Shapun. It's just to cover, and panel hide, treasure up. Treasure, pretty much treasure because, our people, the Aztecs and the Mayans, they would be rich, man. They would be rich. So, that's why you have people come over here looking for gold and finding a lot of gold and everything, right? So now we read this, right? Under conquest, okay, to Tenochtitlan. I ain't gonna read all of it for time's sake, all right? I might come back to it, but uh, says when Cortez and his men invaded Tenochtitlan, Moctezuma II, right? He was the emperor, right, ruling it. Chose to welcome Cortez as an ambassador rather than risk a war, which might quickly be joined by aggrieved indigenous people. So he welcomed the Spaniard. He was nice to him, right? Says as Cortez approached Tenochtitlan, that city the brother just showed, the Tenalt class celebrated Toxcatl. At this event, the most prominent warriors of each would dance in front of a huge statue of whoever it is, the Spanish leader, all right, who was left in charge, word that the natives planned a surprise attack. He captured 3 natives and tortured them until they said that this was indeed planned to happen. During the festival, the Spaniards came heavily armed and closed off every exit from the courtyard so that none would escape. This happened during their last days in Tenochtitlan, right? Now, check this out. Nobles lined each side of the city's main causeway, which extended about a league. Walking down the center came Moctezuma II with 2 lords at his side. One his brother, the ruler Itzapala. Cortez dismounted and was greeted by the ruler and his lords, but forbidden to touch him. Cortez gave him a necklace of crystals, placing it over his neck. Right? Salaki, that wasn't what I was looking for, but that's still part of it too. All right, and you might get this history a little later, but Salaki, I don't know why I did that. But right here, right? It says the Aztec Empire's extravagant use of precious metals, gemstones, and feathers beguiled the Spanish conquistadors when they arrived in the city. The Aztecs valued using gold for plates, ornaments, medals, and other decorations. Cortez eventually imprisoned the king, who openly told him where to find the gold in the region. You see? But the point being, the scripture said that how our people would have these type of riches, and guess what? All right, these riches aren't, you know, literally like paper money, man. What the scriptures tell you what real riches are, land, different things, and resources. Okay, I'm gonna get that. If you got some, you want to add? Or no? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm still here. Slocky.
I saw good. You got some you want to add? Or,
Yeah, damn. Slocky. Where's my Bible at? Come on.
real quick, right? Just to show
Yeah.
what these resources is. Job 1:1. There was a man in the land of Uz. See, it says Job's character and wealth, whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared the Most High and eschewed evil. And there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 she asses in a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. And you look that up in a different translation, right? It says, let's see, let's put that NLT. Tag, man. Because in one of it, I believe in LT, it might say the richest. All right. But Connie, yeah, you got it. Connie, you have something?
Let me get this. Yeah, Slocky. James 5. Because you mentioned how these devils stole all the gold.
Mm-hmm.
And you got this devil, Hernan Cortez. He had a quote. He said, "I and my countrymen have a disease that can only be cured by prayer." He can never have enough. But
Man,
this is. Oh, I'm gonna share my screen.
con, it's up. It's up.
It's great. It's there.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Trying to get in a GNT. This shit. Whatever. Okay. Here we go. What up? The King James. I want. I want the GNT. See what it says over here. Let's get the NLT. See if this will work. Lord willing. All right. It says James 5 in the NLT. Look here, you rich people. Weep and groan with anguish because of all the terrible troubles ahead of you. Your wealth is rotting away, and your fine clothes are moth eaten rags. Your gold and silver are corroded. The very wealth you were counting on will eat away your flesh like fire. You know? And essentially, you can say this is all fictional, but you devils are still holding on to the spoils of war.
Right.
It says the corroded treasures you have hoarded will testify against you on the day of judgment. For listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom you have cheated of their pay. All right, and we can go. We'll be here all night talking about the different accounts of the devil. This devil cheated Jake. Jake was very friendly to them, so much
Right.
so that they felt like they could take advantage. But as we read, for listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom you have cheated of their pay. All right, and like it says in what's that Revelation 6. It reminds me of Abel too, how the cries of our blood, the blood of our ancestors is up there crying unto the Lord.
Right. Yep.
This earth is very bloody off these devils.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's Revelation. I can't remember, but it says,
Let me grab it.
pretty much when Israel died, they go to the Lord. Yeah, yeah, you could grab it. So listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom ye have cheated of their prey. The cries of those who harvest your fields have reached the ears of the Lord of heaven's armies. You have spent your years on earth in luxury, satisfying your every desire. You have fattened yourselves to the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed innocent people who do not resist you. It's a spirit. I ain't forgot about that part.
Con. Yeah, well, first I got the one in Genesis, but I don't know about one in Revelation you was
Oh, you
talking
know what
about.
I'm talking about? Revelation. Let me see.
Yeah, like, and every time, anytime you got a DIP, it's all good.
Con. Revelation 6 and 10.
All right, hold on, let me get that real quick.
Yeah, you got it. You could share. You could take it over.
Revelation chapter 6, verse 10. It says, "And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?"
Yep. So the Israel is going up to the Lord, crying to them, crying
Yeah.
into his, crying into him, like Genesis 4 says, how Cain did Abel.
Yep.
Abel thought he got away. I mean, Cain thought he got away with it, but that blood went up to the Lord. That's why he said, you know, was that in Genesis 4? Yeah, you got it up.
Genesis chapter 4, starting at verse 7. If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. Verse 8. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, "What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground." See,
Hmm.
you know.
And that, hey, that's that. We still crying out to the Lord, real quick. This is
Mm.
Baruch.
Let me switch it back to yours.
Let's see. Now, so you got it on yours. You can look up Baruch chapter 4, verse 31, 31 and 33.
All right. Baruch chapter 4, starting at verse 31. It says, "Miserable are they that afflicted thee, and rejoiced at thy fall." See, verse 32. "Miserable are the cities which thy children served. Miserable is she that received thy sons." Verse 33. "For as she rejoiced at thy ruin, and was glad of thy fall, so shall she be grieved for her own desolation."
Hmm.
See?
So we dealt ourselves that blow by
Mm.
going away from the Heavenly Father. Nevertheless, you know, you you put your hands upon the apple of the Lord's eye, so you got to eat. You got to get punished as well.
Right. Zechariah chapter 2, verse 8. "For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye." See?
Exactly. So even though the Lord used you as a whipping stick, the Lord is going to whip the whipping stick.
Right.
You know, that's
And
a
mhm,
you
and
got
you
it.
know the thing is, look, man, all of the we all got took down, man. All of us, man. You know, from the so-called Negroes, to our people in the to Gad, Reuben, the Caribbean, Central America, South America. We all came to the Western Hemisphere, and at the same time, we all got messed up. So how can you not say? So how can you say the same prophecy? You see, you know. But another thing, going back to them riches, right? Because King Solomon, right? What's that scripture where the Lord was came to him in a dream? Let's see.
Where the Lord came to King Solomon in a dream.
Yeah, and asked him, pretty much ask what you want, and I'll give it to you.
Let's see.
Um, Let me see real quick. It's what is it? Let me see. Okay, I found it. It's just First
First Kings
Kings.
2.
Nah, it's First Kings, the fourth chapter, right?
First Kings 4.
Um, nah, because it was more than that actually. Nah, actually, you know what? Instead of that, let me just type this in. How rich would King Solomon be today? It says approximately $2.1 trillion.
Dang.
Con- Conservative estimates put his peak net worth at approximately 2.1 trillion. According to the Bible, King Solomon ruled from 970 BC to 931 BC, and during this time, he is said to have received 25 tons of what? Gold, riches. For each of the 39 years of it, that's a lot. For each of the 39 years of his reign, approximately 150 ton, 100, 1,500 tons, which would be worth billions of dollars today. So King Solomon, he had real wealth. He didn't have dollars. This is just what he would be worth in dollars. But the point is, the gold and everything is real wealth, you know. So going back, Deuteronomy 33, okay, it says, verse 19, "They shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of treasures hidden in the sand. Okay, and then once again, uh, it says the Aztecs valued using gold for plates, ornaments, medals, and other decorations. Cortez eventually imprisoned the king, who openly told him where to find gold in the region. Although Montezuma discouraged it, violence inevitably broke out in the city. On June 30th, 1520, the Spaniards decided to withdraw with all their loot. They loaded themselves with treasure. They loaded themselves with treasure, man. You know, you ever had something, like you have a car, you take it somewhere and you just, pick up stuff, you get groceries, you just load in the car. You just load and load and load till it's filled, right? So then quietly trudged their way out until Aztec warriors caught them and descended upon the Spaniards and their allies. You see? And we know Issachar, isn't Issachar I believe it's a warrior tribe, right?
You got Reuben, Gad, half tribe of Manasseh. I mean, yeah, you had warriors, all the tribes.
Khan. Um, let me see. What riches did the Aztecs have?
And just the fact that you can find this online shows you that this devil was doing his homework.
Hmm. What riches did the Aztecs have? The Aztecs prized other things far above gold. They loved brightly colored feathers, preferably from quetzals or hummingbirds. That's that bird the brother just mentioned, right?
Hmm.
They would make elaborate cloaks and headdresses out of these feathers, and it was a conspicuous display of wealth to wear one. They loved jewels, including jade and turquoise, man. Let me just type, see if I can find some gemstones of Aztecs. See if any nice pictures will come up. You know, so you had all these different types of things, man. You see people walk around with this stuff to the still today. You know, and but going back here, right, regarding the city, okay, um, conquest. All right, let me see. It's just going through the story here. Um, Actually, you know what? To get right to the point, let me just type this in. How did Mexico City come to be? Right? It says the city talking about Tenochtitlan was originally built on a group of islands in Lake Texcoco by the Mexicans around 1325. That lake city we saw under the name Tenochtitlan. It was almost completely destroyed in the 1521 siege of Tenochtitlan and subsequently redesigned and rebuilt in accordance with the Spanish urban standards, right? But one part trying to see because it said how they had drowned out the city. You know, they had drowned the Spaniards had drowned the city of Tenochtitlan pretty much. Let me see if I can find it. Um, let me just type it in. That's crazy how I had it before the lesson turned on. Now the lesson turned on, I don't got it no more. That's crazy, man. Um, okay. Right here it says on June 30th, 1520, many Spanish soldiers drowned in Lake Texcoco. Uh, no, that's not it. Damn. Mexico City. Um, see something on here. Okay, here we go. Now this is on the Metropolitan Museum of Art. How did Tenochtitlan turn into Mexico City? Shortly after the fall of Tenochtitlan, the Spaniards razed the already devastated city and built the capital of the Viceroyalty of New Spain on its ruins. They named the new metropolis Mexico City, which today, again is one of the most populous cities in the world. Okay, so it's the thing, right? They it's something with Esau, man. They like building over Jake. And they like building over those they conquered. You know, like after they take you down, they want to build over you. Like for example, going back to 70 AD, they took us down, and then what? Built the Ark of Titus. You know, even fast forward in history, right? We had that thing with Black Wall Street, or it's either that or some lake, something. All right, that Esau pretty much drowned over, and I mean, had
Oh yeah, a
I
lot of
said, huh?
yeah, it was a lot of flourishing towns, so-called black towns that Esau to this day they just drowned it out somehow, and now it's just a lake. At the bottom of
Right.
that lake is remnants of Jake and a splendor, so to speak.
Yep. See, so this Mexico City, right? This used to be where our people used to be at, man. Had their own city, but now it's colonized and everything. You know. But let me see. Something else I wanted to bring out too, right? Was one of the artifacts is called the Aztec Sunstone. Now it says the Aztec Sunstone is a late post-classic Mexican sculpture housed in the National Anthropology Museum in Mexico City. It is perhaps the most famous work of Mexico sculpture. It measures 3.6 meters in diameter, 98 centimeters thick, and weighs 24,590 kilograms. Right? What was the Aztec calendar stone used for? It
Hey,
says,
Slocky, bro, I'm gonna head up.
okay, yeah, man. Salaki, we gotta go, but Shalom, bro.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Get off. Yeah, you gotta take me off. I just
Uh,
stop.
I'm gonna try to right here. All right, go. Salakia. All right, my brother had to dip. Salaki, bear me 1 second. All right, going back. Okay, where was I? All right. It says it is more likely to have been used primarily for a ceremonial basin or ritual altar for gladiatorial sacrifices, and that's an astrological or astronomical reference. But I mean, at the same time, you know, it's called a calendar stone. All right, you know, uh, because what our people, right? They could so I'll just find it. Chronicles, I believe. Let's see. Bear me just 1 second here. Mm, okay. This is First Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 32. And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. The heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. But it said the Issacharites, they had understanding of the times. They were able to look up in the heavens and tell, you know, and tell things, right? And this is just, another reference to it. Okay. Going back to this history here. Okay, so our people, they built these, they had civilizations, man, you know, and you also have the Aztec pyramids. Okay, let me just type this in. Aztec You know, and it should also tell you who built the pyramids in Egypt. Okay, it only makes sense. You know, and you had this one. Okay, called Teotihuacan, ancient city of pyramids. I believe that's sound like a Aztec name. So I know it's not popping up. All right, but our people made these things. Okay, now it says going back. All right, I'm getting to some of it now. It says city plans. Bernal Diaz de Castillo, the conquest of New Spain. I'm gonna just start here. It says when we saw so many cities and villages built in the water and other great towns on dry land, we were amazed and said that it was like the enchantments. I believe the brothers just read that. You know, I'm gonna read it in case you didn't. It says on account of the great towers and quays and buildings rising from the water, and all built of masonry. And some of our soldiers even asked whether the things that we saw were not a dream. I do not know how to describe it, seeing things as we did that had never been heard of or seen before, not even dreamed about. Okay. I believe here they give you, some of the layout. Okay. See? Layout right here. And different bridges and everything. You know? And this looks like like the way the lines look even make you think of like a subway system. So our people weren't, our people had already, okay, had stuff going on. Says marketplace. Each Kalpuli had its own Tian Keatsley marketplace. I'm saying that right. But there was also a main marketplace in Tlatelolco, Tenochtitlan's sister city. Okay. Um. So they had marketplaces, public buildings. Okay. Now it says here. Oh, let me look this up. Actually, well, pretty much it was just another city. A lot of people had cities, man. All right. Public buildings just in the center. And the thing is, in order to build all of these things, you would have to have a hard worker. Showing you that what so-called Mexicans are Israelites because it said that Issachar would be a hard worker. Okay, the tribe of Issachar, which are you so-called Mexicans, would be a hard worker. Would be hard workers. All right. Public buildings in the center of the city were the public buildings, temples, and palaces. Inside a walled square, 1,500 meters to a side, was a ceremonial center. There were about 45 public buildings, including the Templo Mayor, which was dedicated to the Aztec patron deity, this is Huatzil Chilto or something, and the rain god and the temple of Quetzalcoatl. Now, Quetzalcoatl, all right, is actually in reference to Yahweh Shai. The Chazak goes over that, all right, you know. And actually, let me get that real quick. I also have to pull it up. Description Quetzalcoatl. Mm, okay, right here it says okay. Um, oh, Salakia. No, not there. Let me type this in. Quetzalcoatl. All right. It says here, in addition to his guise as a plumb serpent, Quetzalcoatl was often represented as a man with a beard. And Yahweh Shai has a beard. Okay. Um, it says here, the Quetzalcoatl, the black god of ancient America. All right. All right. You see, even here, okay, you know, script describes the so-called black man. All right, but let me just see if I can pull something up. All right, let me just come in bigger. Okay, Shalaki jumping back and forth and everything. All right, but you can pretty much look up Elder Kazak's videos on it. Yahweh Shai, his page is Yahweh Shai is coming back. All right, you know, you could look up some of his things on that. Okay, but back here, all right. So they had all these different things: temples, buildings, public buildings, palaces. All right. There's outside was the palace of Moctezuma with 100 rooms, each with its own bath for the lords and ambassadors of allies and conquered people. Also located nearby was the Kukwali or House of the Songs and the Kalmakok. This city had great symmetry. All constructions had to be approved. A functionary in charge of the city planning. This is that person, Kaul Memolokado, a functionary in charge of the city planning. Palaces of Moctezuma II. The palace of Moctezuma II also had two houses or zoos. All right, one for birds of prey and another for birds, reptiles, and mammals. About 300 people were dedicated to the care of the animals. There was a botanical garden and an aquarium. The aquarium had 10 pounds of salt water and 10 pounds of fresh water containing various fish and aquatic birds. Places like this also existed in Texcoco. All right. So you had all of this going on, man. All right. You know, um, let me see. It says, reading a little bit here. Tenochtitlan was the capital of the Mexican civilization of the Mexico people. Founded in 1325, the state religion of the Mexico civilization awaited the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. The wandering tribes would find the destined site for a great city whose location would be signaled by an eagle with a snake in its beak perched atop the cactus, which had grown from the heart of Copil. The Mexicans saw this vision on what was then a small swampy island in Lake Texcoco, a vision that is now immortalized in Mexico's coat of arms and on the Mexican flag. Not deterred by the unfavorable terrain, they set about building their city using the Chinampa system. Okay, Slovakia. I ain't gonna go into that, but it says misnamed as floating gardens for agriculture and to dry and expand the island. A thriving culture developed, and the Mexico civilization came to dominate other tribes in Mexico. All right. Somebody might say, "Well, they was dominating other tribes and everything," but you gotta understand, these are still Israelites, right? And the curses was on them. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 54. And it says, "So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave." Okay. So this doesn't only go for, this doesn't only explain black on black crime. It goes for all the tribes, because the curses is on us. Deuteronomy 28 and 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee, meaning they would be, these curses would happen, it would pretty much follow us anywhere we would go in the world. Now, people are more than just so called black people, and they dwell more than just in America. So, anywhere in the world and overtake thee, including, my people back then. All right. The Aztecs, okay. Concerning them, it says, "And overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy power to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee." You see? So, and this goes in for Gad. They say the Native Americans enslaved other Native American tribes and they was warring against each other. Yeah, the curses. Okay. It says, continuing on, this is a thriving culture developed. And the Mexico civilization came to dominate other tribes around Mexico. The small natural island was perpetually enlarged as Tenochtitlan grew to become the largest and most powerful city in Mesoamerica. Commercial routes were developed that brought goods from places as far as the Gulf of Mexico, the Pacific Ocean, and perhaps even the Inca Empire. All right, which is all the way as you see down there, man, all the way down here. You know, Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez, right, which is this dude, man. All right, and this is all. I believe this is all a part of what's known as the Age of Exploration. These conquistadors coming over to the western side of the world, taking over. Okay, you know, Spanish conquistador, which the word conquistador, all right, let's type it in here. Conquistador means conqueror. Spanish for conqueror, conquistador. All right, back here. All right, it says um, Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez arrived in Tenochtitlan on the 8th of November 1519. Although there are not precise numbers, the city's population has been estimated at between 200,000 and 400,000 inhabitants, placing Tenochtitlan among the largest cities in the world at that time. Compared to the cities of Europe, only Paris, Venice, and Constantinople might have rivaled it. you know, they said this city, was rivaled by these different cities like Paris, okay, see, Venice, all right, and Constantinople. It says it was 5 times the size of London of Henry VIII. In a letter to the Spanish king, Cortez wrote that Tenochtitlan was as large as Seville or Cordoba. All right, cities out there in Spain. Cortez's men were in awe at the sight of the splendid city, and many wondered that they were dreaming. So check that out. You know, let's see. Now regarding the conquest, so the people of Tenochtitlan were soon exposed to diseases to which they had no immunity. Symptoms were often delayed for up to 10 days when the infection would spread throughout the body, causing sores, pain, and high fever. People were weak to the point that they could not move nor obtain food and water. Burial of the dead became difficult to impossible due to the pervasiveness of the people's illness. The people of Tenochtitlan began to starve and weaken. The death toll rose steadily over the course of the next 60 days. So you see, when the so-called white man came over here, he brought death with him. But we can't call the so-called white man the devil. You know, we can't hate the so-called white man. What's going on, man? You know, this is what happened. And now now people, a lot of our people have been groomed, all right, to love this devil. See, but you've been groomed to do that. You see, he's really your enemy. Okay, let me get another precept here. Um, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 12. Um, Starting in verse 10. Never trust thine enemy. And our enemy, one of our enemies is a so-called white man. He's a heathen. For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped the looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Either let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts? All right, let me jump down, verse 16. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. You see? That's what happened. This devil will do this to us, man. We saw them going crazy, you know. Um, let's see. Let's type in once again riches. Uh, Aztec palaces description. What did an Aztec palace look like? Let me see. Matter of fact, I want to see the wood. All right. Aztec gold. All right. Says here Aztec gold refers to the gold used by the Aztecs for various purposes, including decorations. The Aztecs used gold for ornaments, plates, and medals. Treasure. The Aztecs had a large amount of wealth, including gold, silver, jewelry, and precious stones. Looting. Spanish conquistadors looted Aztec gold in the 16th century, which is once again why the scriptures say, you know, Deuteronomy 33, all right, and 19 says, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall succor the abundance of the season of treasures hidden in the sand. They will have them riches. You see? So, what was I? All right. That's why you would have people come over here looking for these you know, the riches and gold and stuff. All right. Montezuma's treasure. Some believe that after Montezuma was killed, his successor sent slaves and warriors to hide the treasure in the American Southwest. The treasure is estimated to be worth over $3 billion. See? You know? Let me just see. All right. Let me just post some artifacts of the Aztecs. See if it has anything in here. All right. So let me see. All right. You had this one, you know. But once again, our people had went off too. Okay. Because I just saw something to where it says um right here, the Aztec death whistle. All right. It says it seems that the death whistle might have been used in the sacrifices of slaves because Chichitli and Huaro was an instrument that could produce a cheech sound, and it was used in banquets of Aztec merchants where slaves were killed. According to the Florentine Codex, chich was a signal to pull out the hair from the middle of the slave's head. After comparing the spectrograms of the cheech sound made by human voice with that of the death whistle model, and bearing in mind the connection with Hecado, the wind god, the death whistle, etc. Right, but you know, showing that they went off because they were sacrificing and everything. All right, but you know, this is to show you, man. All right, it's some history, regarding regarding the regarding the history of tribe, some of the history of the tribe of Issachar, man. Which are you so-called Mexicans? All right, I'm gonna just read this last part showing that they got conquered. On the 13th of August, 1521, after over 2 months of fighting, Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortes succeeded in bringing about the fall of Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, and consequently brought an end to the Aztec Empire. You see? So they brought it in. Okay. Now I'm going to read this ruins. Tenochtitlan's main temple complex, the Templo Mayor, it says, and that was like the main one. It says was dismantled and the central district of the Spanish colonial city was constructed on top of it. Look this up, the Templo Mayor. All right, this is an image of it. You see how big that was, man? How big it would have been? All right, it's the people down here compared to it. You know, um, but it says the Great Temple was destroyed by the Spanish during the construction of a cathedral. The location of the Templo Mayor was rediscovered in the early 20th century, but major excavations did not take place until 1978 to 82. After utility workers came across a massive stone disc depicting the new dismembered body of the moon goddess, whatever that is. All right, fake shit. All right. Says the ruins, constructed over 7 periods, were built on top of each other. The resulting weight of the structures caused them to sink into the sediment of Lake Texcoco. The ruins now rest at an angle instead of horizontally. Mexico City's Zocalo, the Plaza de la Constitucion, is located at the site of Tenochtitlan's original Central Plaza and Market. All right. Um, you get it though. You get the idea. Okay, and there's some more of the ruins. You know, in that city. All right, but then in this prophecy that we went down, Esau will conquer our people. Okay, we read, but these scriptures link up. Okay, these scriptures link up to show who our people are, man. All right, scriptures link up. We got conquered, even the southern kingdom. So let me just pull this up real quick. The 12 tribes chart, because which is you know, it just shows who our people are. Okay, hopefully it clears up. I'll get a better picture. So it's not letting me. Bear me just one moment as I try to pull it up. All right, but you can pretty much just look up this chart. All right, okay, right here. You know, Issachar. You see the so-called Mexicans. That's who. That's who the so-called Mexicans are. We just proved it with the scriptures. Okay, it's history, man. You know, of course, people got conquered, man, but it doesn't matter because Yahushua is gonna come back. All right, and that's when we're gonna come back into power as a whole. See, the Lord is waking up His people now. You read in Ezekiel the 37th chapter. All right, but I just wanted to go through this lesson. The brother had joined once again. But yeah, man, so hey, with that, I'm gonna give all the praises, honor, and glory to who rightfully belongs, which is Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Hakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, ever well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the elect. Shalom to the elect.